It's Tuesday on Your View. Welcome to the show. I am Murayo Afolabi Brown. As always, I never do this alone. I have the ladies with me. YK in the building.
Good morning. Good morning.
How you doing?
Good morning.
Good to see you.
I'm fine. I'm fine. Is that your mask that is shining?
We're having matching masks now.
Yeah.
I have to copy you.
Yeah. Oh,
Matching mask. I like yours. Nice. I like yours. How you doing, YK?
I'm fine. The masks have become a fashion statement.
Oh, yes, they have. I mean, seen some really trendy ones.
Yeah. Even though they're so difficult to breathe in. And when because I work in the evenings and my glasses, they steam my glasses and it's just so uncomfortable. I have to take off my glasses, walk. Then you now start sweating the kind of sweat that you will lose weight with.
You know what? It scared me one time. I took out my thermometer at home to check. And I just realized it was the mask. I'd worn the mask for so long. I was heating up. That thing is a lot.
My partner bought thermometer. Why are you buying thermometer? I said, you're checking temperature every day.
You have the one that looks like a gun. The handheld one, no. That's a good one to have.
At home?
Can have it at home. When people, Washman came the other day, somebody's fixing the inverter today. I check you first, when you enter your house, you wash your hands, the whole works.
My estate does, actually. You can't drive into the estate without being checked.
Well,
you see, the thing is, even if you test, if you don't have a temperature, you can still have it.
Certainly. It's just precautionary.
It's not like Ebola. Ebola, once you have temperature,
you just know.
You know.
Yeah, you're right.
I think sometimes it's just good to have things that you can say, okay, at least I knew I did this. I tried. Because when you look at it, sometimes you go to buy something from the market. Okay, this is what I do. I go into a supermarket, right? Because I'm being extra careful. So I wear...
gloves?
Not gloves, the nylon that you take off.
Right.
So I take that off, then use it to push my trolley around, then get my stuff, then have to remove it. Before your phone, after a while, you're like, see, this virus is going to catch me anyhow, somehow.
I like my own grocery store. They have a sink. So you wash your hands before you get inside, and then you sanitize. So that means that at least as you're going inside, whatever you hold, at least I know that it's clean, and I don't have to worry about touching something that's been infected.
You know those things, when they put them under UV light, they will show how your hand is just against the virus.
Anyways, how you doing, YK? You good?
I'm good.
Mariam, how are you?
Under the circumstances?
Yeah.
No money?
Well, they've extended the ease, this second phase, and that just means that no interstate. Then the curfew is still on, and then you have to just make sure you're home before 8 o'clock. Yeah. How are you doing, Mariam?
I'm doing fine. I've been quite busy.
Yeah, good.
Yeah,
busy is good.
Busy? Yeah, busy is good, but it's a lot sometimes.
It depends on the busy.
Yeah, sometimes you're doing so much, you're unable to do so much. Does that make sense? You're so busy, you're unable to do other things that are just as important. Yes, and that's where I find myself right now. Like, how do I get it together? So that's where
I have been
right
overwhelmed too. I had a paper that was due, a 2,500 word paper. Usually they give us like 1,500 word paper. Yesterday we had a test on an open test. So they gave us a test on Saturday, and it was due by midnight yesterday. And it was it's those kind of papers that you have to read thoroughly. You have to do the research. Good. I was up all night. I mean, till once I got in, I was on my laptop all the way. I submitted at exactly 11:45.
Nigeria time.
And it was due 11:59. Yes, so right, Nigeria time. Oh my God, I was just typing all the way. I mean, it's interesting. I just went to go and use my money to go and buy Wahala. I mean, I don't know who's forced me to go and do.
No, but it's good. But I'm finding it more difficult to keep up with the online classes for my kids because, of course, since they've eased the lockdown, you can go out and do some stuff. So you're not in lockdown with the kids, 24/7. And it's really difficult for me. No matter how well behaved your kids are, when you're not there, I mean, you can never tell what they're up to.
Totally correct. Let's go on a break. It's Tuesday. We have so much to cover in the papers. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Weeks. Picture here, moving on with life, students at social sciences class at a Russian high school. CBN's NNPC to spend £1 billion on returnees quarantine. 1,180 ASU members fail BVN test. Udegu Supreme Court verdict shocking, says Sage. Akeredolu to reopen worship centers. Let's start with the
CBN.
The
Yes,
CBN story.
Yes, go ahead, Wake.
Yeah, well, the NNPC, well, what had happened was the Minister of External Affairs, Geoffrey Onyemas, had said that he wasn't going to pay for the hotels and feeding of the evacuees anymore, that they couldn't afford it. And social media, everybody just went at him. So he now approached NNPC and Central Bank, because they have social response, CSR, and asked them for help. And they have agreed to pay 1 billion to feed. So he was very happy to announce it yesterday. Look, CBN.
So the federal government actually paid the first batch, and they complain it's quite expensive because they're in a hotel. So they had already said they're not paying the next batch. But now he's saying that obviously with NNPC and CBN's help, they can do that.
Yeah, so that's about 3,000 people. So
hotel, feeding. I have a cousin that is in the Abuja one. Nice room, everything.
We still talk to somebody. I don't know what happened. Yeah, go ahead.
So quickly, ASU, they're talking about 1,180 of them failed their BVN tests. What this means is that, because of the IPPIS that they're supposed to be on, and until you give your details, you will not be paid. And many of them who had given their details sort of bungled their information somehow. They didn't give the proper information. So that's why some of them are not on it. Then also the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation has said that because of the way it's been run, the salaries and payments been run, the tertiary institutions have been underpaying their taxes, and that has caused state government to be heavily dependent on federal government to pay on the differential. So we need to see how this affects the economy as a whole, and the federal government can't keep doing that if you're not on the IPPS paying your proper taxes. We're all in trouble.
Moving on to the Punch, Lagos, Kano, Borno account for 52% of COVID-19 deaths, says federal government. BRT driver who killed businesswoman handed over to police. Federal PEMSEC queried for buying uncompleted building at 7 billion naira. Journalists detained 12 days for criticizing Lai Mohammed, says CDHR. I wanted to read that story. Fashion artist's daughter, quarantine suspect discharged, heads for prison. NSCIA urges Muslims to look out for moon on Friday. FG quarantines British aircraft pilots to apply full sanctions. And PhD scandal on no overrules board, ICPC orders demoted FRO Bros reinstatement. Okay, let's start with the major headline, and then we'll take it to the human interest.
Okay. Did you read the major headline?
Yeah, I did. So Lagos, Kano, and Borno have set to account for the largest number or the highest number of those who are infected by COVID-19. And then it also talked about the plans for the federal government has made by extending the restriction on the lockdown. But Kano State is still, the proper lockdown is still being enforced for another 2 weeks.
Right.
So concerning the numbers, that's largely from Lagos, Borno, and Kano State, right? The thing is, in physical numbers, you would say maybe Lagos is leading. But then if you compare the numbers of testing done in these states, so in percentages, Lagos may not necessarily be the largest, right? The highest right now.
Begin to test as quickly as Lagos.
Yes, because if you look at the mortality rate compared to the number of those who have been tested and confirmed, as compared to places like Kano State and Borno State who are still questioning what is causing these deaths. So. Okay,
let's talk about the human interest. BRT, what happened, Wake?
The BRT. I was going to go on the twins.
Okay, go ahead. I'll take the BRT, but go ahead.
Okay. I can't pronounce his name. Alaji.
Something gold.
Something gold. Yeah, his twins were kidnapped.
Yes.
They raided the house armed with machetes and everything and took the twins. They beat the mother, and the mother had been actually waiting to have children for 12 years.
Yeah, really
and
sad.
They now kidnapped them on the 25th of April. They found the guys.
Yeah.
But Alaji had paid 4 million. They asked for 50 million. He had paid 4 million ransom. But they still went ahead and found them. There were 4 of them. And a woman was involved. Right. She was mandated to look after the twins. And how was that? No, she was not part of it. She said that she thought that her husband had gone to bring children from outside
Oh my God.
from his mistress.
I'm so glad that they arrested this guy. This is really pathetic, really. And I'm happy
They got the
mothers will
money.
reconcile.
And the worst part of the story was 2 of the guys were his employees. And they said they were broke. And he's like, I'm paying you money. And the twins went with them because they knew them.
Yeah. But even the employees said that Alhaji treats us very well. Even he said that one of them he was going to send for Hajj, you know. He says we eat from the same plate because he had become so close to him. And yet, well, that he treats them well, but they just were greedy and they wanted more.
Really sad.
Everybody also said,
we don't have enough time for the other story, but I'm happy that those who killed, there was a BRT driver, he ran over a woman who's actually the wife of a top executive at Globalcom. Social media went crazy, and I'm happy that they finally...
Not only social media, they burnt, they vandalized BRT buses.
Yeah. I'm so glad that happened. Moving on now to Daily Sun. COVID-19, curfew, interstate restriction, others to stay. Okonjo-Iweala and Dede Onueli. Others make list of 100 African leading women. Christian group warns governors, IGP over movement of Almajiri. And declare emergency on erosion in Southeast. Ohaneze tells federal government. And there's one more story. Yeah, so I read the Okonjo-Iweala story, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm really excited. Okonjo-Iweala and Ndidi and Bolanle Austin Peters and a few other women made the top leading women in Africa who are actually impacting development across Africa, which is good stuff, great stuff to celebrate. So we're happy about that, and we'll continue to celebrate these women. Is there any other story that we've not taken his son? Okay, let's move on to the Daily Trust. Nigeria not ripe for total relaxation of lockdown, says Buhari. 8,000 Nigerians killed in Northwest in 10 years, says group. Lockdown extension industrialists set agenda for government on economic pandemic. Okay? The 8,000 Nigerians.
Okay, so we have, there's a report by International Crisis Group. So it talked about in 10 years, 8,000 Nigerians have been killed in Northwest. And it talked about that, and this is mainly, a lot of these killings happened in Zamfara State. And the reason for, and these killings has led to, of course, people being displaced. So we have over 60,000 refugees in places like Niger, Nigerians living there as refugees. Right. We have over 200,000 people, you know, internally displaced. And he says that the banditry, the killings, the kidnappings in like the Northwest has caused herders to move further down south to like the Middle Belt, and that has now also caused tension between farmers and herders, and also cattle rustling, more kidnapping, more banditry. So it's just a vicious cycle of banditry, killing, and then places have become like hotspots for Boko Haram settlements. You know, so this is what is causing the displacement, the poverty, and so many other things that's happening in the Northwest. All
right, moving on to Vanguard. COVID-19 interstate lockdown curfew on for 2 more weeks. Flight ban violation, impounded plane's crew quarantined in Lagos. We're investigating firm where 38 staff contracted COVID-19, says Makinde. I didn't see that story on page 11. I really wanted to read that story. COVID-19, 80% of businesses adversely affected, said LCCI survey. Cut in oil production would deepen economic recession in Nigeria, says Fitch. And COVID-19, we may reopen worship centers soon, according to Governor Sanwo-Olu. This flight that came in from the UK. Yes, Fledget.
Yeah, they had actually applied for what do you call it? Humanitarian aid, and they'd given them the permission to bring in for humanitarian purposes, but they now started secretly bringing human beings and paying. So I don't know how the government got to here, but they've impounded the jet and they put the pilots under quarantine.
Yes, and, which is great.
Yeah.
There was another story I wanted to take.
He was in prison. Straight.
I'm so happy that the survey is finally out from LCCI. They took a survey to determine that 80% of businesses in Nigeria will be adversely affected by COVID-19. That means that a lot of businesses would have issues and they would need a lot of support. So they are also advocating that the VAT be taken off, to be stopped. You know, the increase in VAT should be stopped for now. They should be suspended totally, at least until businesses are able to begin to... Who
do you want to collect VAT from? Say it is me that I'm not selling that we pay VAT. I want to understand that I'm on complete lockdown for 2.5 months or more.
There's a purchase I made actually recently, and the person, we had to discuss VAT. I said, Madam, please, this VAT, think it. I don't think I can pay it.
Okay, let's
Even
move
the
on.
tax, even personal tax. How do you take payee from your staff?
When
Well,
you're
you're
not being
paying them
paid.
half salary. You take from the half salary now. You pay them half.
The half salary is not enough for them.
Yeah.
Because I was listening to you yesterday, you were asking, Shebi, you would have been saving. Saving what? Even if you're saving, is it, were you saving to pay salary when you
No,
were
but
not?
according to our guest yesterday, really the textbook version is that 30% of your revenue should be only for staff salaries and operations.
Okay.
So that's the ideal. But unfortunately, as Sokwe said, the ideal is not the reality.
Reality.
People actually hardly using the
Ideal
30%.
doesn't include generator repairs, buying generator, buying diesel. Ideal doesn't include all those. Textbook doesn't include all those.
Okay, unfortunately, we have to wrap up. That's why it's a good idea to do your master's in Nigeria. Trust me, it's a whole different ballgame. I mean, trust me, there's a huge difference. When you do your master's in Nigeria, it's very local, what you're hearing, and Nigerian examples.
Yeah.
You can relate to every single thing. Not the one that you travel abroad. I'm not saying anything is wrong in traveling abroad to go and do your master's, but I've seen the difference. I have the difference, and I know that it's also worthwhile doing your master's in Nigeria. Okay, let's go on a break. That's a separate topic. When we come back, we have a hot topic that's been trending since last week. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back. Welcome back to Your View.
Okay. Thanks for staying with us. So, according to a report, a 22-year-old woman recently drowned her baby because the child prevented her from going to university to study. In her own words, she said, "I did it for 3 reasons. First, for financial, and I was tired and frustrated. And the most painful reason is it deprived me of actualizing my dream of becoming a lawyer." When she was speaking, she didn't really sound remorseful. It was obviously premeditated and it was planned. And the video, we don't want to show the video because it is actually very heart-wrenching to hear a woman speak that way. But many of you have probably seen this video on social media. But I'd like to hear your views because it's not just about what she said, it's about what she's not saying. You can call us on 070-806-68014. You can also tweet to us at TVC Connect, please, hashtag YoVTVC so we can read your tweets. There are lots of angles to this story. Society pressure, family expectations, the shame, she used the word shame, financial obligations, stress on her, quite a number of things. Waike, let me start with you. When you watch that video, or do you want me to start with Mariam? Because I know you're still trying to get over the video. But let me come to Mariam first.
Okay.
When you watched that video, what came to mind exactly?
Okay, first of all, it's you hear the words and then you see someone who's speaking these words, but it's very far removed from what she's saying. It's like someone telling the story of another person, and this is her giving in detail the steps that she took to kill her child on, and it was not like a first attempt, just one time. It was many attempts until her child died. But it made me really sad. It made me really sad for her, very sad for the baby. And she must come from a family, parents, sister, brother. She talked about her sister. I mean, this must be a very tough time for them. But clearly, this is someone who is struggling with some form of mental illness.
Right.
A lot of the words I heard being thrown around is postpartum psychosis, postpartum depression, things like that. So I think I've shared here once, a friend of mine told me when she went abroad to have her child, she was so overwhelmed, she said, because she was by herself. So it's not like having a child here in Nigeria where you have your mother-in-law, cousins, people just around helping. So for her, she was alone. She said this particular day, she took her child and she was strolling and she just wanted a car to hit them. But thankfully, neighbors had noticed a weirdness about her and called on social services. So that's our problem here in Nigeria. Usually we do not see the signs when someone is going through mental issues. We don't see the signs, and when we do see the signs, we don't know where to take them. We take them to the pastor who would want to cast all sorts of demons out of them, or places where they even beat them even more, and then things like this happen.
But I'd like us to go to the societal pressure because yes, there's a mental aspect, no doubt about it. You're very correct. She was speaking like she was removed from the situation. However, there's that part of societal expectation that once you get pregnant and you've not achieved, you've not graduated, you don't have a job, suddenly you are now you should be ashamed of yourself. And that is the part of pressure. She felt it was embarrassing because she wanted to finish her jam, that the shame of that entire situation is what pushed her to kill herself. So I mean, as a mother in that kind of situation, a lot of young girls are finding themselves in that situation whereby they got pregnant and they feel too embarrassed and ashamed to talk about it, and their own issues just...
Let me go to the system. Our system in this country is what is the problem. We don't have... I mean, Koro has shown us that we don't have health care.
Yeah.
That's number one. Now, psychology, for psychologists, they are not even popular people. You cannot even wake up and say, oh, I want to go to see a psychiatrist, because they will say, she has gone mad. And madness in this part of the world is shameful. Now, this girl, I mean, I watched the video. Unfortunately, I just watched the video. So I feel very, very bad. The girl, look into her eyes. She's obviously not well. She's obviously not well. You don't wake up and kill a human being if you are well. So there is nobody, and she's going to be treated in a way that...
We don't even know how she's going to be treated.
Oh, we know.
She's going to be treated like a murderer.
This child is 1 year and 6 months.
Almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years. That's a full
do you know the sad
human
thing?
being.
You know, she said she was dressing up and the child was around her asking her questions. So this is a mother and child relationship. And while she was going out, so she thought before she had done her makeup, and then she proceeds to kill the child.
Let me take this call from David. David, good morning. Are you there?
Good morning.
Thanks for calling. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, good morning for the good work you guys are doing there.
Thank you. Thank you so
I
much.
love your program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, concerning to the lady you are discussing about, I wouldn't want us to crucify her, because sometimes one question that comes to my mind is the women are always the victim. What about the man that impregnated her in the first place? I want to share a story. When I listened to that program this morning, I'm crying from my office because my mother also went through the same thing when she was impregnated by the boss, which is my father today, and threw her away from the office, no salary. She even denied her. She even denied the pregnancy. My mom had to go and stay with her own mom. Things were not working well. She delivered me. And she told me one time that I was asking her a question because she later got remarried. The way she was maltreating me when I was staying with them. There would be no food. Even I went to school without no bedroom slippers.
So sorry.
I asked her a question. Mother, are you my mother? Just tell me the truth. She cried. She now narrated the story to me. Yes, I thank God today because I am the managing director and CEO of my own company. I have put things, I take good care of her. Even the man she later got remarried with, they later divorced. They had 2 children with the man. But my question is this. The women are always the victim. Yeah. And the very first time my wife had my first child, I will tell you the truth this morning. When I went through the labor room and I saw what she went through, I told her, the only child you gave me is enough. I don't want any child again. Because the women are always the victim.
Thank you so much.
Such a powerful story.
Thank you so much, David, for sharing that powerful story for us. I think that really hits the nail on the head because one of the things I'd like us to achieve from this conversation is the reality of mental health. Because we have a lot of people who are trying to counsel families on the issue of mental stability in the home. But people don't believe that mental illness actually exists. And we're seeing that he actually grew up to the point where he was going to school and he didn't even have slippers to go to school. And he had to confront his mother. So that woman was broken from that relationship for many years, and she continued masking and masking and masking to the point that she was venting on the child. So these things are real.
Yeah, and when you talk about mental health, I want to stress that mental health does not mean you are a mad person.
Certainly.
It can just be something just snaps
Right.
in your brain. So I don't want us to be looking at, it's a mental person. No. And it's a disgrace.
Yes.
It's something to be hidden.
That's what we're trying to fix from this conversation.
Yeah,
People
but-
must change their mentality towards mental health. Go ahead,
Okay,
Mariam.
so for me also, mental health issues can also be exacerbated or by how we behave generally, our culture and our traditions. So we're a culture of people who would not speak to our children about sex because that's not the sort of conversation you have with your daughter. Not speak to her about contraceptives because
Right.
you shouldn't even be having sex in the first place. The sex that you're not even supposed to have discussed in the first place. So we hide and hide and hide while a child is going through the normal changes that a child will go through and then finds herself in a situation where you are already warned about the sex you're never meant to discuss, the contraceptives you're never meant to discuss, and you're told that when you get pregnant, don't come home. And when you get pregnant and you're in school, if you're in a mixed school, where I've heard this happen a lot, the pregnant girl is out of school and the boy continues his education.
That's simple.
And then your life is ruined or changed forever. So some people have shared their stories and they said what has helped them is my mother refused to listen to society. She took this child as her own and made sure I finished school and made sure I went ahead to
Mariam,
do.
we need
So
to
as a society,
Right.
we need to rethink how we handle issues like
Yes.
this.
And we need to also tell more of these stories because a lot of women out there have been through space, whether at the age of 15, 14, they got pregnant, 16, and they had the kind of help you had. You just related. The point is that more of these people need to come forward to share the story so that people know that, listen, it's not the end of the
way to
world.
run- yeah.
If you get pregnant, it's not the end of the world. Life actually still goes on. Because I know quite a number of people who are successful today. They had kids at the age of 14. Their parents took the child from them. Their parents were responsible enough to take that responsibility. And then she was able to finish school, and now she's doing very, very well. So the point is that more of these stories need to be brought to the fore so that people know that there are options beyond killing or getting frustrated or mentally broken. Let me take this call. Antonia from the UK, thanks for calling. Are you there?
Good morning, ladies.
Morning, Antonia.
My first time I'll be calling, but I
Welcome
watch
to
you
the
every day.
show. Welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Actually, what I'm looking at is there are different people at different situations in life. You know, students having babies and all that, and people having mental health. Obviously, we know this lady wasn't that mentally stable at the time she did what she did. But what I'm looking at is maybe Nigeria needs to develop their social services because when, like here in the UK, we've seen mothers who actually take their babies to the social services at Tanko, you know, or the social services providing a sort of support for them, like a family support, having somebody assigned to check on that person, to see how she's doing with the baby, how she's coping, and if she needs any psychological help, you know, that sort of thing. So I think the government has a part to play in this as well, in supporting their citizens.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. But actually, in Lagos State, for example, we do have quite a bit of social services, but it can be overwhelming. There are quite a number of people, and sometimes they feel stretched.
Apart from that, also, I don't think that Nigerians also understand the culture of having to go to social services to help you. I think for Nigerians, when you get to that point, it's like you were not even good.
See, I'm reading some of the tweets, and some of the tweets are just so negative. And I'm just, we are not understanding.
When you say negative against the girl?
Yeah,
of course.
I'll read one to you.
I'm not
It
surprised.
says, that is totally unacceptable under any guise. His name is Eleta Mike. A child you suffered to carry for 9 months and went through pains of labor. I can't even fathom that. So many questions. Where was the father, her parents, friends, and all this? So he is thinking, what? You can't have any excuse.
Yeah.
That's what he's thinking. You can't have any excuse. And yes, it is an unimaginable act. Yes, it is an evil act, but we are talking about the mental health of the person. Because you don't just wake up and kill a human being if you don't have scoring in your brain.
Right. And because
And I want to go through personal experience because I had my mother, I had my grandmother, I had, but I was on tour. I was on tour with my baby, and as I come off stage, my mother would give me my baby. Oh, yeah, she wants breast because I was breastfeeding. I breastfed for 2 years, so I would come. I would be weak. I had lost weight. In fact, my milk was almost dry, but my baby wanted. And you know, I was lucky that I had support because I could. And at that point, I knew what it meant to have postpartum depression. I knew. I didn't have it, but I could easily envisage how some women enter it because sometimes you are overstretched as a human being.
Right, totally
Now,
correct.
I'll go another personal level. My daughter, she has 2 babies. That's why I went when he was 1. I went to help her. Then she got pregnant, and now she has 2. Yeah. I couldn't stay with her because if I was there, I would be on lockdown now. But when I speak to her, I can see. So her husband had to come to her aid and say, look, you can't. Oh yeah, go out.
We have to wrap up.
Just go for a walk.
Unfortunately, we have to wrap up on this, but it's a continuous conversation. We cannot end or exhaust it at this time. And we'll certainly bring in more experts, especially I know that there are quite a few people out there who will deal on mental health. So we'll definitely bring them in sometime next week, hopefully, to discuss it.
Yeah, even apart, like from the medical, psychological part of mental health, there are things we need to do as human beings, as a society, culturally, traditionally, we need to start changing so that things like that do not happen, because sometimes people are pushed into that kind of mental problems. Okay,
unfortunately, we have to take a break now. When we come back, we'll discuss this COVID organic drink from Madagascar. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back. Welcome back to Your View.
Thanks for staying with us. So recently, President Muhammadu Buhari received the country's share of the coronavirus herbal cure, COVID Organics, from Madagascar. According to reports, the few countries have received their own supplies, and Nigeria is to pay 170,000 euros to Madagascar for the drug. Now, joining us is the Director General NAFDAC, Professor Mojisola Adeyeye. Good morning, madam. Are you there?
I'm here. Good morning. It's good to be here with you.
Yes, good to have you. So, have you seen this COVID Organics yet? Have you received it, or still with the presidency?
It's still with the Ministry of Health. I believe they will be sending it to us very soon. So we're expecting the samples.
In your view, how long would it take for us to know exactly the content of this drink?
From the time that we get it, I think it will take NAFDAC maybe about 2 weeks.
Okay.
Because we have to check the toxicity, we have to check the microbial content, and when you are doing toxicity, it's time bound, meaning how much of it can kill a certain number of mice or rats or whatever animal model we're going to use. So it's time bound. That's why it's about 2 weeks.
Right. No. Okay. So for most like vaccines, things like that, by the time they're being received and said to be good for consumption or for use, a lot of trials, clinical trials, would have gone on, to determine that this vaccine or this drug works. But we have a drug here, and Madagascar says it works. Why aren't we asking for the clinical trials of determining why this drug works, while we're receiving the drug now and then doing the trials ourselves?
Actually, it's a good question that you ask. The Madagascar COVID Organics, I was made to understand that it has a plant called Artemisia. And we have Artemisia in Nigeria. And plus other medicinal plants that is anti-malaria. Artemisia is anti-malaria plant. I believe that it's better for us to spend the money for clinical trials on our own products than to spend that money on the COVID Organics.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that we will not check the safety in NAFDAC. We will do all the due diligence because we do that anyway for any product that is submitted to us. We give 2-year approval if everything is okay with that product. We will do that with COVID organics, but in terms of clinical trial, it takes a longer time for clinical trial. First, you have to have a hospital that is going to review it, their ethics board. We have to review the protocol. Somebody has to submit the protocol. And once the hospital is okay with the clinical protocol, it has to come to NAFDAC. We will do our own due diligence in terms of the clinical protocol.
All right.
So it takes a while to get all this through. And now you have to look for COVID patients.
Right.
And that is another logistics that may take time.
Right.
So that's why it's better for us to use that money to do our own local herbals that may have the same effect.
I just wanted to ask, there are rumors that we actually paid for this drug 170,000 euros. I don't know if that is true. If it, I would have thought we should just maybe get one bottle instead of buying it when we're not even sure it works. That is one. And two, if we find out that it works, can we volunteer? Can human beings volunteer? In case I get Koro, can I just have one bottle? Can I volunteer?
Actually, it's a good question you're asking, but for clinical trial, it has to be a well-designed experiment because it's an experiment. People can volunteer, but when you are testing for COVID, that person must have COVID. Because you would start with the viral load and see, and then follow up, and with other things that will need to be observed, and follow up with time when this drug is being used on that particular set of patients.
But we thought
the person the person has to have COVID first, to be able to volunteer. Yes.
The reports we had gotten was that it was preventive, not so much curative. Could you please clarify? I thought it was preventive.
Actually, if it is preventive, I will not be surprised, okay? Because when we were young, we were using Daraprim, Sunday medicine.
Right.
It's anti-malaria, and there are anti-malarials that can be used as prophylaxis, meaning for prevention. Yeah. So if it is used there, if this COVID organics is used for prevention, I will not be surprised. They must have done some preliminary research on it to know how much to use for prevention as opposed to for treatment. Yeah. But if it's for prevention, it means that the dose must be higher if you are trying to use it in a clinical trial setting. So it cannot be the same dose as you use for prevention.
Okay. Okay, so of course, when we first heard the news about this cure, I think a lot of Africans were excited about it, and I guess a lot from the desperation that there's nothing to cure it. But recently, it's just been reported that Madagascar reported its first death from COVID. Would you say your confidence, or Nigeria's confidence in this drug has waned since the report of one person dying from COVID in Madagascar?
I heard about that also. You know, the way this COVID disease works, sometimes it may be because of an underlying disease condition, but one death out of hundreds of people that already had it before, I don't think it's too bad. So I would not call it a failure. It's still a success if it works, if that is what is working for them.
Right.
Yeah.
So one death is not too bad.
Yeah, because he actually had underlying, he had diabetes. The person that died. Right. So he did have an underlying illness.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, madam, last week we read in the papers that NAFDAC was in receipt of just one application for a local herbal drug. as of today, how many have you received? Have you received more? And if you have you started testing or trying to see if these drugs can work?
Yes, that's a good question. I made a call for people to submit, and I believe we have like 3 or 4 now. Okay. And we have to process it. We are going to expedite the process, by the way, because it takes a while for us to go through the laboratory testing and whatnot. But I've already given the directive to expedite. So where we are right now, we're just trying to make sure that all the applications or the information submitted are okay. Right. So by the end of the week, we may be sending these samples to the lab.
All right, let me go on a quick break, madam.
Not sending the samples to the lab. We will go and inspect the site because we don't want a product that somebody will take and the person will start vomiting because of maybe microbe or whatever. So we go and inspect the site to make sure that whatever sample we're going to get, that sample was prepared in an environment that will not make the drug to compromise the health of the user. Okay, so that is the step. Then we'll take the sample to the lab.
Let me go on a quick break, madam. We'll be with you shortly. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere. Right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back. Welcome back to Your View.
Thanks for staying with us. We still have the Director General of NAFDAC, Professor Mojisola Adeye. Thanks for joining us. So, Mariam had a question.
Yeah, so for me, what is the criteria that needs to be met before a drug or solution or herb can be presented to NAFDAC as a possible solution, treatment for COVID? Or is it just anybody that says, hey, I have a cure, then we'll all go running after them and checking them out?
Okay. If somebody says he or she has a remedy, I will not call it a cure, a remedy for COVID, first of all, we want to know the history of that plant or the family that plant belongs to, because plants have families and species and so on. Just some background information on the botanical characteristics of the plant. We also want to know whether that plant has been used for anything before, because sometimes you use one plant for several diseases, and the usage will be different for a particular disease. So we will ask for that. We will also ask for any written or published document about this particular plant. It may not come from Nigeria. It may be a plant that is also available in other clients. So we want to be sure that we get enough information so that once that application is submitted with this information, then we'll start the process. And part of the process, like I mentioned before, includes, of course, inspecting where this plant, this medicinal product was prepared to be sure that it is not going to compromise the health of the people.
Sorry to cut you off because we have very little time left. I want to just get in as much as possible. In the West, we hear things like the vaccine can be ready until 18 to 24 months and all that. In your own view, if we get these remedies correct and we get the perfect recipe for a drug, how long do you think it would take us to get something people can actually ingest? What's the process? How long do you think the process would take?
And just to someone on Twitter is asking, she says, let's have clinical observation rather than clinical trials. That takes months and years.
What's the difference?
It's in relation to what Mariam asked.
It's a very good comment, actually, but clinical trial can be expedited. For chloroquine, hydroxychloroquine, as we speak, there's what is called the solidarity trial going on, because they want information as quickly as possible on chloroquine or hydroxychloroquine, whether it works. So it is a trial treatment where you can actually get the results maybe in about 2 months, 2 to 3 months. So it's not years. Because that comment is true. it depends on the rate at which the patients are recruited, but with COVID, the patients are already there. So it's going to be much faster than years, it will be months.
Yeah, but something is confusing me because everyone keeps saying, oh, there is no cure for COVID, there's no cure for COVID, but they go in with Coro and they come out negative. Maybe that means they have had cure now. That means they cured them.
You see, you are actually very correct in the sense that somebody goes with Coro and comes out clean without Coro. That is why this is a clinical trial treatment. It depends on the number of people. For example, if you have 100 people that go in and only 30 people come out cured, in quote, it is not significant statistically. But let's say 80 people come out cured, in quote, that is significant. So these are the data that are being accumulated. That, okay, how many actually came out cured or recovered, if I want to use that, recovered. So it is an ongoing trial treatment, and in 2 months, 3 months maximum, we'll probably get a definitive conclusion or inference, if I may use that, about chloroquine or hydroxychloroquine. So it's the same thing with any clinical trial treatment. The fact that it works for one person, it may not work for another person.
Right. All right. Thank you so much, Madam, for joining this morning. Thank you for your insights on this.
And your time.
Yes. All right. We're going to go on a break now. We'll come back. We'll move on to other topics. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back. Welcome back to Your View.
Thanks for staying with us. So as different countries are facing unprecedented challenges from COVID-19, the strain on our government is extreme to improve the testing capacity for our population. Joining us on the show is a molecular neuroscientist and currently a research fellow at the University of Aberdeen, Dr. Peter Imoesi. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, Mariah, for having me this morning.
Good to have you. So I was trying to read up your article, and I see that you are objecting to the real-time quantitative polymerase chain reaction. That's the RT-qPCR pool testing type. And you were saying that those individual testing is not going to work for our country, that you think we should have that sample pool. Could you tell us the difference between both?
Thank you for the question. So basically, the article was trying to propose that looking at the population density of Nigeria, what we could do is we could do individual testing. So just to be clear, I was initially an advocate for individual testing as we do currently. But when I sat back and I did a thorough examination of our population and the rates at which we test at the moment, I sort of proposed that we could actually go for pool testing. So pool testing basically means that you have a number of samples. You combine those samples into one, then you run an analysis on that particular sample as a combination of one sample as a whole. So my proposal is really simple. In areas that you have that are referred to as the epicenters, you could do individual testing. In areas where the virus is not so prominent, you could go ahead to do pool testing in those areas. But if I'm to go one step further to explain this to your audience, basically assume that you're in the kitchen. Then in the kitchen, you've got 10 cups filled with water. In these 10 cups, you've got one, which is salty water. But as a scientist, you're not aware which of the cup is salty water or which is a neutral water. So what you then do is next to have an empty cup where you take 4 or 5 teaspoons of water from each individual cup into the 11th cup. Now, based on that, you then do a proper mixture. Then at the end of it, you consider yourself as the RT-PCR machine. So you dip your finger into the cup, then you test it. So if it's tasty, you could then say, oh, this particular water is tasty, I need to understand from where among the 10 cups is the salty water from. Then you go again to do individual testing. However, when you do taste that same water again, and the water is tasteless, you could say all 10 cups are negative. So you could say all 10 individuals are negative. Again, the NCDC may pull an argument that what about asymptomatic individuals where the viral load may be low or moderate? Again, in science and everywhere in the world, there is something called optimization of protocol. So what you need to do is a careful optimization of your protocol to ensure that that particular virus is present at all time. Again, I also support my argument by saying that if you're also in the kitchen and you notice that your taste buds are a little bit weak, you could increase your number of teaspoons again into the 11th cup. And based on that, you could actually detect if your water is salty or if it is tasteless. Again, the machine RT-qPCR is 95% sensitive. So when you have a virus in your sample as low as 0.001 nanogram per mil, per mil, you could actually have the machine detecting it effectively. That's 0.001 nanogram per microliters.
Okay. Very scientific. Okay, so my own question is, having done all the scientific work, how does this reflect in reality? So this is what I mean. Your sample, the way I think I understand it is, it would show that in this area, that the pool testing will show that in this area, there are cases of COVID, right? So it does not tell you individually who has it, but it could show you that from the sample, let's say in a local government, you took samples and did a pool testing. It would show that in that local government, there is COVID, there's a case or 2 cases or more. Did I get that right?
I'm happy you asked this question for more clarity.
Okay.
So the way it works is this. So take, for instance, Alimosho local government in Lagos State. Okay. So we go to a particular street and take our samples, then go into the lab. Now, if we have, say, for instance, 100 sample, in this 100 sample, you could combine 10 sample individually. So 10 times 10 is 100. Now, when you run your analysis on these 10 samples based on pool testing on these individual samples, which is combined together into one sample, if the test comes out positive, you go back again to run the analysis individually to differentiate from the 9 or from the 10, which of them is positive. Okay. However, in a situation where all 10 are negative, you could say all 10 samples are negative on the ground that your protocol is carefully optimized. And this is already published in reputable journal here. The Lancet journal is already published there already. Right. There are countries already optimizing this also in Germany.
All right, go ahead, Wake.
But isn't this a long thing? Yeah. You are testing, you are conducting more tests. Because by the time you go and test 100 people, because you're not even sure who is inside that 100 has the corona.
It's not. I like this question. It's not. The reason why it's not is this. If you recall very well, NCDC have done around 35,000 plus total tests in the country. In that total test, I think we've confirmed around 6,000. So it means that around about 29,000 of our tests are negative. So what that simply means is that in, let's say, look at 100 samples, for instance. In 100 samples, what you could do is you do this pool test. You will be surprised that out of all 100, only 10 will come out negative. So all 90 will be, only 10 will come out positive, all 90 will be negative. So it enables you to move at a fast rate.
I get. Go ahead.
I'm not proposing only pool testing, okay? What I'm saying is this, Mariah, take for instance that you have a clinic, an individual comes in who shows all the symptoms back to back, okay? You could say you will go on individual testing immediately.
Right.
Like again, I told you also, I think somewhere in Etiosa or maybe Alimosho, they are referred to as the epicenter within Lagos. Yeah. So within those areas, you could go for Etiosa. So within those areas, you could go for individual testing. Right. But in areas where you think that, oh, this virus is not so prominent, you could go for pool testing. Okay. Pool testing is not something that is let me say, a taboo in science. pool testing is actually used to screen blood samples when it comes to HIV and blood donor. They've used pool testing also for syphilis. So it's not something new in molecular science. It's all about careful optimization. Like I said before, there's a laboratory in Frankfurt, in Germany, that have carefully optimized this protocol going forward.
All right, thank you so much.
There's science on the one hand, and we hope that science and the aim of science is to help us, solve problems that we need science to solve. But if you were to sit with government, I feel that some of the questions will be, okay, I'm Nigeria, I'm struggling to even provide palliatives for my people. Should I put all that money to testing, pool testing, and then going back to individual testing? Or should I just, just pay for the one-time testing? Secondly, they may be looking, would that now mean that the government will have to put everyone on lockdown? Because if you were to do pool testing and people are going back and forth and moving from one sample area to the other, how are you able to make sure that, it's all coming from there? So I guess there'll be the social science part of it, like how would it work in reality?
I think this is a very smart question, and I'm going to come from this other angle. The downside of under testing, which is what we are doing right now, is actually jeopardizing all of our efforts. So here is the thing. You know that the incubation period for COVID-19 is 14 days. So take TVC, for instance. So let's assume that in TVC, we have 100 staff on ground. Then maybe in the last 1 week, we've tested just 10 out of 100. That is under testing. Now, for the fact that myself, Morayo, and yourself were not aware if we are negative or positive, it therefore means that we, among ourselves, if, for instance, there is an individual who is positive, but we're not aware because we've not tested yet, it means that all of our effort we've done already is already sabotaged, because we don't know who among the population is actually positive because we're not testing enough. And again, there is something called the asymptomatic individuals, who are referred to as super spreaders. So you need to carefully fish out these individuals on time so that you do not infect the entire population because of your low testing ability. So it's not a function of we are investing more resources. It's actually we are saving more resources in this particular approach when you do pool testing at the same time individual testing.
If you test 1,000 in a pool, and the thing is positive, that means you have to test the 1,000 individually.
One by one, yes.
So
yeah,
to me, that is...
statistics, when you look at the statistics, that is not always so. Like I said before, I told you that we've done 35,000 plus already in the country. And out of 35,000 plus, we've only got 6,000, which are positive
Let me
cases.
pick your brain a bit, because the truth is that we need to ramp up testing in Nigeria, no doubt about that.
That's true.
And we're hearing that our sister countries and different places they are testing much more than we are. Now, sample can be an option. What other options can we consider? Are there other types of test kits we can actually get to help ramp up testing across the world?
For me, I think the standard is the RT-qPCR for now, but for the rapid test kits, they are not so reliable for now. Yeah. But for now, is the RT-qPCR that is more reliable. Again, when you look at your sister country right there, which is Ghana, they are into pool testing, okay? And for instance, I think in Ghana for now, they've got just around 29 deaths of the population of about, I think, 30 million people. So if, for instance, pool testing is actually not good enough, then Ghana should be reporting more deaths in their own country compared to what we have in Nigeria. So basically, if you look at the population we have as a country, and looking at the fact that NCDC have actually said that there is community spread right now. So if there is community spread in the country, it therefore implies that even the contact tracing may not be effective enough. So if we really want to open up the country, we need to adopt a two-way strategy whereby a certain group of people, you give them individual testing, a certain group of people, you go for pool testing. Now, for pool testing, that does not imply that you're not going to pick the virus. Like I said before, I said qPCR is 95% sensitive. And based on that, you will always pick the virus when you optimize your protocol. Maybe the point here is this: do we really have the personnel to optimize our protocol? May I also remind you that about 4 or 5 weeks ago, we were told that we are able to conduct 2,500 tests per day. From my calculations, from on the 9th of May, till this very moment, we've barely done 1,000 and a little fraction above.
Wow.
When you divide for, I think on the 17th, when I did the maths, on the 16th and on the 15th, when I did the maths, if you divide that by 26 laboratories in the country, basically each lab is doing a total number of 46 samples per day. 46 samples, go do the math, it's on NCDC. Do the subtraction between the, from on the 9th and on the 10th, subtract it, divide by the number of labs we have at the particular time of that particular date. You will realize that each individual lab is actually doing 46 tests per day. So basically, it's either we have low personnel who are highly skilled to do this experiment, or I don't really know what is going on within those laboratories. That's just the point here.
From your calculation, we'll be here till next year testing.
Exactly.
Well, let me share some of your experience in Aberdeen. So, did people volunteer to get trained on how to help testing? I mean, what exactly was done? Because how Nigerians are asking, what can we do to support the government? I mean, the government also asked us, give us ideas. So, are you saying that people are out there volunteering to help ramp up testing?
Yeah. Yes, that's true. So, when COVID-19 broke out in the UK, the first response from the UK government was that all of our qPCR machines were moved into the NHS. So the NHS is the same as what you have in Nigeria, which is the National Health Insurance Scheme. Now, when all this equipment were mobilized to the teaching hospitals, the next thing they did was to send emails to people like myself, PhD students, professors, with the RT-qPCR skills. I got my own personal email to volunteer, and majority of my colleagues came on board immediately. Wow. We had so much volunteer to the point that the government was like, oh, please stay back. You guys are on the standby. We've got enough already. Wow. So in the laboratories, we've got skilled experts who are within the academia. Sure. My stress here is academia. I'm into academia. So I do this test. The question is, in Nigerian university, take majority of the universities in the country, for instance, how many of these universities can actually run RT-qPCR? How many of our academia have the expertise? Now, I'm not trying to blame our academia. The point here is this: what is the funding from the federal government to these institutions? Sure. Are they well equipped? Recently, we've got £1 million from the Scottish government to ramp up our research in terms of vaccine, in terms of antibody development, in terms of behavioral pattern of the Scottish people in response to COVID-19. Wow. Tell me for sure or for a fact, is there any university in Nigeria right now that the government have given any funding at all? They barely have nothing in their laboratories. And if they have nothing in their laboratories, what can they do? So
that means that you are not coming back. Definitely not. Because I was going to suggest that volunteer now, but after you said that last statement, I know that I should all leave you where you are. Abi?
No, I'm a Nigerian, so if my services is required, I will always.
There is no £1 million to give you here, but I know that the CBN actually is putting some funds together to support research and development in the universities. I read that in the papers yesterday. We don't know how long these things take, but hey, that can be a light at the end of the tunnel for us. But thank you so much.
It's like manufacturing ammunition and the front line of war. That is what we're in right now in Nigeria.
That is a low blow. Don't be talking like that.
That's like shady. You're shading us.
Don't shade us like that. That's savage. That's savage. All right, thank you so much.
Let me explain it so that she can understand. That is, you are going with like this to the front line of the war, and you are carrying the part. They will not kill you there in the front.
Exactly.
On that note, we need to end the show. Thank you so much. We'll be speaking with the molecular neuroscientist, currently a research fellow at the University of Aberdeen, Dr. Peter Imoese. Thanks for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right. That's all we can take on the show.
We don't have time to read. It's too late.
Well, I know we have tweets from the previous, the mental health war. Somebody said, and I thought it was interesting, that we shouldn't call it mental health, that the girl is a cold-blooded murderer, and we should call it as it is. Yeah, that's a perspective. You're right, because according to that Twitter person, that if it was a guy, would have said, he's a murderer. But because it's a girl, now we're breaking the mental health issue. Hey, there are different ways. We can look at it from different angles, but it's a topic we're not going to leave. We're going to come back to it and bring in a proper health expert.
Because for that guy, there are hormones that enter the woman's blood when she's pregnant, that don't enter the man. men have different hormones.
Right, right.
But
So
I
women-
also feel it's conversations like that cause problems like this.
Anyways,
There are
we have to wrap
problems.
up.
We have
Thank
to-
you so much, ladies. It's been a fantastic show today. Have a lovely day. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye for now.